What did your friend do that accidentally turned you on? I was making coffee in my AeroPress for us and pressing slowly on the top of it like you're supposed to, when she shouldered me over a little and leaned on my hand to push it down faster. It was cute as duck and I'll never forget it. Edit. Oh it. This is too many upvotes. She's gonna see it. Hi. Sorry. I was off from college for about a week. I came back and a friend of mine who I hung out with every day ran up and hugged me, but as she hugged me she jumped and wrapped her legs around me and we were just looking at each other. Should have just went for it, but alas. I only realized after the fact months later. If I could go back in time I'd punch myself in the balls. A girl I became friends with on a school trip in high school fell asleep on my shoulders on the ride back. I'm 28 and I'm still coasting on that memory. I had a friend who I hung out with during high school. We would make our homework together and always study together for the big tests. She was attractive but I never looked at her that way. One day when we were in the library studying, I noticed that she wore a different perfume. When I asked about it, she came very close to me and made me sniff her neck. I never knew that I could get a boner so fast. After that, things went further and eventually we got married years later lol. Decide to randomly put their legs on your lap to sleep while in a car. In high school a girl I hung out with changed clothes in front of me on the basis that well you've seen me in a bikini so whatever and I was like yup. I slept over my friend's house because it was late and I didn't feel like driving home. She walks out of the room to change into what she sleeps in, which was a sleeveless band shirt with holes in it. The armholes were stretched and showed side boob, no bra, and just underwear bottoms. I made a move and we're married now. She insists to this day that she had no intention of seducing me. It's just what she's comfortable sleeping in. The question should have been, when did you miss obvious signals that your friend is DTF judging by all the replies? When I was a junior, I grew my hair out and had it cut to a 10 inches tail. I'm sitting in class one day and my classmate behind me starts gently running her fingers through it. I melted into my chair. Choked me playfully. Shocked the hell out of me. When she put her hands on the back of her neck while leaning on the table and her eyes never left yours while listening to you. Instant turn on. Edit. Hand. A group of us went to a firework display and during the usual louder and bigger finale fireworks she jumped, grabbed my arm tight and didn't let go. Not sure what happened inside me but yeah, that did it. I remember a girl classmate friend liking the smell of my deodorant and just grabbing onto my arm and then proceed to walk beside me. We were sitting on her couch watching Thor Ragnarok. Finished our Chinese food. She got a pint of Ben & Jerry's out of her freezer and she sat sideways half on my lap and took turns taking a bite and feeding me a bite. It was oddly intimate, but she'd made it clear she was convinced if we started the date we'd end up married, and she wasn't sure she was ready for that. 6 months later we were dating. 6 months after that we were married. Coming up on our 2-year anniversary. I was once speaking to this customer and I couldn't understand her because of her thick Russian accent. So my co-worker stepped in and started speaking fluent Russian and I swear it was the hottest thing ever. I definitely have a thing for accents because that it was putting me in some type of mood. Duck. Have this friend of mine. One day at home while we were drinking with some other friends she started singing. At that moment I looked at her and didn't just see my friend. I saw a very attractive young woman. I sometimes still see that moment when I look at her and shake the thought away. She asked me to touch her thigh. She was very proud of them after working out. Little did she know I really like thighs. We're engaged now. Ruffled my hair. It wasn't that big a deal. But she was one of my close friends and that just, whoa. I had a friend lick my face as a joke because she was one of those girls that thought they were quirky or different for acting like a weirdo or something. It was like freshman year of high school It was definitely strange as hell. But Jesus Christ did she awaken something in me. I wasn't even particularly attracted to her. I was just licked and I felt the arousal creeping in and I'm standing there like oh god oh duck please don't get a boner duck no 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 no. She was pulling me like aggressively but playfully. There came this weird comfort I had never felt even from my parents. Lol. Whisper in my ear. Instant boner. This was 5 years back in high school. A female friend and I were put in a group together for a science project. We met up after school at her place because no one was home and she didn't want to drive over to my place. As I was sitting on my laptop and reading, she scratched my forearm with her nails to get my attention. Man, her look in her eyes and the scratches. I still remember that. Sat beside each other. She laid her head down onto my lap. I went into panic mode and promptly jumped in my seat, making her sit back up. We were both drunk at a friend's house party, and I playfully pulled her hair to get her attention. She gasped, and then gave a happy little moan. What made it hotter was the way she gripped the seat of her chair with both hands, and encouraged me to do it again. And so I ended up playing with her hair all night. I still think about her gorgeous bliss-filled face, though sadly we never took it any further. He was driving and I was riding shotgun. He had to reverse to parallel park and turned his torso towards me, putting his arm around my seat in order to look back. He did that so confidently and effortlessly that it made me feel a little funny. My high school crush was sitting on a table during class and pulled me close to her and wrapped her legs around my waist to not let me leave. She was in cross country, so her legs had some decent power on them. Right after, she grabbed my arm and gently bit my forearm. Little did I know, she awakened two new things in me. Didn't do it, but we were rock climbing and the rope was too tight, so he helped me untie it so he got close enough for me to catch his smell, and he actually smelled so good. Instant turn on. Might seem weird, but it is what it is. D. And nope, he wasn't sweating BC, he belayed me. A colleague friend took care of my wounded knee during work. We were alone in the canteen and he was very sweet and caring. Guess I'm not used to that. Edit. Spelling. Have had several female friends bite me in a playful manner. Turned me on every single time. There was this one incident where me and this pretty girl went out for a long drive. We drank a bit and on the return she was tired and put her head on my lap while I was driving. Pretty sure she felt my D. We were sleeping in the same bed after a night out at our friend's flat and she told me to spoon with her because she was cold. Probably wasn't accidental, but I was drinking with a friend of mine one night and she was itching about her boyfriend at the time. I had always been interested in her, but I also respected it when she got into relationships. Even though I really didn't like this guy she was with. She said she was gonna go to bed and that I could crash on the couch since I had been drinking. She started stretching in front of me and said that she always stretches before bed. Now I wouldn't have questioned this, but she was sticking her ass right in my face and she was getting into some pretty suggestive poses on the floor. She went to bed and the next day thanked me for letting her vent. A lot of people told me she was trying to duck and I should have went for it, but she had been drinking and had a boyfriend, so there were 2 red flags for me to not even try. Edit. Thanks for the awards. Was very cavalier about getting changed in front of me. I was sitting shotgun, and he was messing with me in the chair behind me. Stuff like grabbing my shoulders, pinning me to the seat by shortening the seat belt, stroking my hair. I was beet red, but I didn't tell him to stop. We're dating now. He is the sweetest person I've ever dated. I feel really lucky. We were neighbors. She just kicked out her ex-BF, and we lost power due to an ice storm. The power was restored later, but her heat wasn't working right. She called it in, but the maintenance people were busy with calls to fix heat in other units too. We were hanging out at my place watching movies and basking in my heat, though it was still chilly, so we were sharing a blanket on the couch, snuggled up together, and drinking whiskey. She passed out on the couch, so I put on an extra blanket on her and went to my room. About 1 hour later, she walks into my room and just falls into bed next to me, gets under the covers, snuggles up to me, then says I'm cold and passes out. I don't know. Maybe I felt wanted and that she came to me for comfort. We didn't hook up or anything. The next morning she woke up, and she made me breakfast, and went back to her apartment to get her heat fixed. Edit. WTF happened between me posting this and now? Thanks I guess. As a guy, I decided to fall asleep on a close friend's lap who then proceeded to stroke my hair and lightly pulling it. It was really hard to fall asleep cause I was more worried that I'd get a boner from that. Every day one horny question appears and new and somehow gets into hot. Mayo. Not really a friend. but my first boyfriend when I was still finding out how attraction works. Pulled the collar of his shirt and leaned his head to the other side because he wanted to scratch his neck. IDK. I probably have some fetish for collarbones and necks LMAO. When he flicked between languages whilst talking on the phone with his mother and then asking me to pass him his wallet. I knew people could switch it on and off like that, but I've never seen the flow quite as effortlessly. This one girl started tickling me. When I started tickling her back, she started to moan and said she was sensitive there. Awkward drive home. Girl was really affectionate and hugged everyone. When she got to hugging me I was really awkward, so I admitted that I had never hugged a girl before. She said, and I quote, "It's fine, I'll be your first time." All my friends were laughing at how that sounded, and high school me was rock hard. My crush felt my hoodie because it was soft. IDK, it felt weird and turned me on. God, I'm so lonely. When I was a freshman and taking a 6 AM class and going to practice an hour after school, she let me take a nap with her lap as a pillow and played with my hair. It was so relaxing. Also, another girl got drunk and nibbled on my ear and I was like, oh it. Connor had grabbed my arm as we were walking. Played porn in their laptop. We were 6 guys watching a gangbang. It was really weird. Was talking with a coworker and her friend walked behind her and tugged her hair as a joke. Her reaction was a quick lip bite and eyes rolled up. It happened so fast, but I had to walk away for a moment. We were going to a picnic with our classmates. This was in 10th grade. I'm doing second year of college now, and we were in this deluxe gigantic bus. We actually played hide and seek in the bus. Anyways, so while we were playing, I crossed my legs and sat down under one of the seats, and a female friend of mine came to the same spot and asked if she could hide with me. I agreed and she lied down and placed her head on my lap, but her head was exactly on my D. It kinda turned me on, but I was trying really hard not to have a hard on and creep her out. Luckily, my efforts were not in vain. I still keep in touch with her and actually mentioned this to her a few months before COVID hit. She admitted that she knew she was on my D, but didn't want to move because she thought that would make me feel awkward. We had a good chuckle and we're still good friends. A friend of mine used to sit on my lap when we'd run out of chair hanging with other friends, and she'd move her hips to find a comfy spot, but goddamn it was hard on me. Hell, to find a way that my little John wouldn't poke her in the butt, which did happen a couple times, which would be followed by her giving me the smile and shifting just a little more and saying something coy. Another time was when we were hanging out while I had a really loose tooth. She was getting annoyed at me pushing at it with my tongue, so she pushed me to my bed, straddled me, and reached her hand in my mouth to tear my tooth out. From the sounds being made, my groaning, the bed shaking, my dad came up to make sure we were alright, then saw us sweaty, her on top of me, face right up to mine, and thought we were about to do it lol. After she used that as a distraction enough to yank my tooth out, I had to go downstairs to stop up the bleeding and managed to explain to him what had happened. To which he looked mildly disappointed, and I think his headcanon to this day is that I had sex with her, or at least some light, over the clothes. Action. She dried my motorcycle seat with her sleeve while I was putting my helmet on. A friend of mine I had a crush on sucked on my fingers, as a joke kinda. Then someone told her they do it in porn all the time and she never did it again lol. I was having a drink with an old friend a long time ago. At a point after a brief pause she just looked at me, smiled and said, "You're very handsome." You know, it got a little quiet, awkward, and we carried on drinking and chatting, and soon it was like nothing had happened. But from that moment on I never failed to notice the striking blue of her eyes, and my feelings became slightly complicated and conflicted. It didn't last, of course. Just bizarre how a compliment can change a perception, especially for us men who receive so few. We barely speak anymore. We're both married and she has a son. Of course I love my wife with all I have and all I am. But there's always that memory. I've never forgotten it and imagine I never will. Held my hand for a few seconds. Just happened a few days ago. She was driving and we held hands for a while. I'm still evaluating why that had such an impact on me. Not very subtle, but she spontaneously pulled her pants down to tan her legs while we were chilling outside. When she suggested doing it I was like, oh sure, assuming she had shorts on underneath. Ha nope. Victoria's Secret panties. I laughed and said dude we're outside, but in truth god I was turned the hell on. She wasn't the brightest friend, but that's what made hanging out with her so fun. Mayo I miss pre-COVID times. Heterosexual male here. Male friend of mine was responding to a question another friend asked and my eyes met with his. He gave me a quick wink, which was never a thing he did, and it caught me so off guard. I later caught myself giggling and swooning at the move. Put her hand on my upper thigh and as her fingers wrapped around I got hard enough that it touched her hand. She looked at me with a bit of surprise in her eyes and then she winked. Date. After the wonderful, super and loving advice of everyone, I decided to bring it up with her to ask about a relationship. She said she is open to that. Naya. We used to do this thing where she'd kiss my cheek whenever we said bye. She kissed my neck on accident because I moved. I think someone distracted me at a party. That's one of my sensitive spots. And yeah. Edit, we've been dating happily now for 6 years. He and I were watching a movie when he gave me a hug. While hugging me he gently ran his hands up and down my back. He didn't mean anything sexual with it. I on the other hand have a very sensitive back and was severely turned on by it. The next day he made fun of me for being ticklish. I then admitted to the truth about that. Needless to say he did it again later. We've been dating for over a year now, see. Getting close to 2. Didn't try to take advantage of my drunkenness when I was clearly signaling for a kiss. Not getting a kiss back made me appreciate that friend a lot indeed. I had this friend that while having long phone call sessions, she used to talk to me in this seductive sounding Colombian accent and called me bizcocho, which is cake in Spanish. Never thought being called a dessert would be hot. Or maybe I'm just weird. She was my female best friend at the time. We went out to watch A Star Is Born. She rested her head on my right shoulder. I was on cloud 9. I miss her. My back is an erogenous zone for me. Whenever a friend of mine gets too huggy I need to quietly extract myself from them. Mayo. Sat on my lap and was shifting around. For reference, I'm a girl and it's making me wonder if I'm actually bisexual. Haha. Tripped over a rock and accidentally jerked me off to completion. Former co-worker on base, close to 18 years ago, had been trying for an entire year to get in better shape. She had always been pretty but just wasn't happy with what mirror showed her. A year of swimming, running, and lightweight training later, and holy it, I was talking to her and she stretched, arms above her head, and her sweater lifted up to her ribcage, showing all that glorious tummy real estate down to the hip bones. Apologies, mum, but I may have had many impure thoughts about said tummy real estate since. Side note, we were very not interested in each other romantically, so no. This wasn't a sending messages kind of gesture. Damn. I offered him a sip of my drink and he made intense eye contact with me as he slowly put the straw in his mouth and took a nice long sip. I found it kinda weird to be turned on so much by him sucking on a straw since I don't have a D. We've been dating for over 2 years now. She made out with my wife, writing their name on my hand arm. Extra points if they add a little heart. There are no accidents. Master Uruguay. A few years ago me and a friend were goofing around, making flower crowns on a grassy knoll. She decides to roll down said knoll, and as she does her shirt rides up and I can see the sun reflecting off that little line of hair that goes down from the belly button. I swear time stopped and all of my blood vessels woke up at once. The sun was shining brighter. The flowers smelled sweeter. It was as if I briefly stepped into a more perfect pocket dimension. It was then I knew I definitely was not straight. Thanks again for reminding me how dull my life is. Had a friend who got a tattoo on the back of her neck. Decided to kneel down in front of me so I could see it. Never been so happy for willpower in my life. Last thing I needed was her turning around to find a tent. Really cute girl I had a crush on sat in my lap on the school bus headed home because there weren't enough seats. This same girl also told me I don't ever ask guys out because that's their job. Holy it, I was so stupid. Edit. Thanks for the award. One of my first few ever. I told her a joke and she smiled so much, looked at the ground, then gave me a "you're so funny" look. I honestly wanted to date her since then. It's been 3 years and I'm still thinking of her. I was the friend. She had hosted a party with our friends. We had been on the same beer pong team for a bit and I had been jokingly giving her a hard time about missing some shots, to which she responded by saying that she'll slap me, an inside joke. It won't even been hard. I stared at her, and she raised her hand to so, and while maintaining my gaze, I quickly grabbed her by the wrist and held on for a second before letting go. She quite literally said that turned me on and then asked if I heard what she said. I said yeah and continued playing. Edit. I should have added this sooner, but I had my reasons for not doing anything, let alone the fact that she was already hooking up with an acquaintance who was also there. Made me watch Teen Titans with them. Started watching the first episode as friends. We were dating by the time we finished the last one.